So box.
Hi, my name is Rochelle, and you're listening or watching to Box F1 Pod. Today we're going to be talking all about the Belgian Grand Prix, with a little of Hungary mixed in since we did miss last week. There may be some action missing on track, but we will be making up for that with like a little preview into silly season, which has been kicking off with full force before we even launch the summer break. So before we get into the race and the sprint and everything spa, let's start with the digital warm-up. Lap 1, F1 news. Another silly season, another Alpine bomb blowing up the news cycle. Obviously, we all saw the Otmar thing, and if you haven't, Otmar has been let go from Alpine. But this has been going on for like a bit longer than just Otmar's removal. Sounds like he's dead. He's not. He's just been fired or let go. So I'm gonna rewind and start at the very beginning of all this reshuffling over at Alpine. So 3 weeks ago, Bruno Famin, Alpine's chief engineer, was made the VP of Motorsport. This was done so he could act like as a liaison between Otmar and Laurent, because Laurent clearly hates Otmar. I honestly don't know what it is about Otmar. It like must be an Otmar problem, because team principals, CEOs, sorry, he's the team principal. CEOs just like fucking hate Otmar. Like, we all thought it was a Lawrence problem. It's also a Laurent problem. Like, why do CEOs hate him? What? I mean, I can see him, like, getting on your nerves, but anyway. So that dude, Bruno, was like, I'm here, but I'm not going to change anything. We're still, like, on this, like, 100 race trajectory or whatever the fuck their process is. It basically just sounds like Otmar took Lawrence's 5-year plan and rebranded it to the 100-year race plan, the 100-race plan, the 100-year plan, and is just executing it worse than Lawrence. Anyway, so a week after the whole Bruno thing, Laurent Rossi was fired. Or I suppose he wasn't like fired, but he was mysteriously moved to special projects. Whatever that means. So he was replaced by some dude from Ferrari named Felipe Crieff? I don't know. To this news, Otmar very confidently said that he had so much faith in the CEO of Renault, who's like above everyone, so he makes all the calls. And Otmar has so much faith in his decision making and knows that he has patience to wait out for Otmar to execute this 100-year plan, race plan. Why do I keep saying 100-year plan? But honestly, like, and then Otmar was basically like, he's a man of his word. So I know he'll do this. I think Otmar's favorite phrase in the world is they're a man of their word. And he also does not know what it means / know how to figure out if someone's a man of their word, because no one he has ever branded as a man of their word has been a man of their word. Or he's just like misinterpreted their word. He said that about Fernando. He's like, Fernando would never leave because he was a man of his word and he'd stick around. Oscar was never gonna leave because he was a man of his word. No one's a man of their word, or Otmar is like seriously misreading all of these situations. Along with Otmar's firing, though, they also got rid of a dude named Permin. I don't know. He was like basically like at Alpine since he like popped out of the womb, which is sad because he's been there for so long. But like Alpine made a note like saying that they were not getting rid of Otmar and Permin because of their ability, but more so because of the like lack of unity in the overall vision. So like they weren't aligned with Alpine / Renault, so they were axed, which is like PR for we don't want them here, get the fuck out. While sad, this does come at the tail end of 2 double DNFs and like a million penalties for Ocon. Not that we can necessarily blame Otmar for that, I don't think, unless he like made like a pact with a witch. But we can't not blame him. Like, someone has to go. It's obviously not his fault that the FIA is out to get Ocon, and that there were 2 double DNFs last week's was, or 2 weeks ago, was fully not the fault of Alpine in any way. But someone has to go, and Otmar is like really easy to fire, so he's gone. Anyways, I'm sure we're going to figure out very soon what their next move is. I think the obvious solution is to get Ryan Reynolds on the phone. He seems prime candidate for a team principal. He's not French, though, and Otmar was a massive failure, so I don't think Alpine's ever going to go not French again. What if they bring back Cyril? A bit of bow. If they bring back Cyril, I will die. Die, dead. All right, moving on to Nick and Daniel. So a couple of episodes ago, I recorded Silverstone before the news came out, and as I was editing, the news came out, so I put in a little like snippet about my thoughts, and I've had more time to gather my thoughts. By the way, there was a really funny moment where my guest Dias, I had asked him if he thinks that Red Bull was going to replace Nick soon, and he very, very confidently said absolutely not. Who would they replace him with? And I was like, Daniel, and he was like, no way. Literally less than 24 hours later, they replaced Nick with Daniel. So basically what happened, I'm just gonna recap a bit. And obviously, like, more has transpired since I talked about it. Daniel's had his first race, 2 races now. He has officially, like, whatever. It's a bit more firm, so there's more to say. But basically, I'm just going to recap what happened from the beginning. Daniel was testing at Red Bull, and was setting such insane times that, like, Christian called Dr. Helmut Marko just because. And he was like, hey, guess what? Daniel's, like, in a rocket ship out there. Just kidding. I'm going to call everyone a rocket ship. Thank you, Lewis. And I guess Christian didn't really think it through, because I truly don't think he was anticipating this. Dr. Helmut Marko hung up the phone, immediately called AlphaTauri, fired Nick DeVries, and hired Daniel Ricciardo. I think Daniel Ricciardo was still at testing when he found out he had been taken as AlphaTauri's new driver. Wild. It is unfortunate for Nick. A lot of this is unfortunate for Nick, but it's particularly unfortunate for Nick that he is being replaced by one of the most liked drivers / human beings on the planet, because it's really overshadowing the fact that he's been treated horribly and super unfairly, and like basically just like it's like he didn't exist. The news was like shared without any mention of Nick, other than like Daniel replaced Nick. A couple days later, AlphaTauri did release a statement from Franz Tost saying that he's excited for Daniel to come on board, and then like quickly chucked off on the end of that statement that he thanks to Nick for everything he's done. But that's like not enough. That's just rude. And then AlphaTauri posted a picture of Daniel coming to the factory, which was, he's already like decked out in AlphaTauri clothes. Like, they got that like apocalyptic shit to him real fast. Like, really AlphaTauri clothes reminds me of like utopian prep school vibes. Anyway, so he's like immediately there. The whole place is like covered in like honey badger stickers. Like, very impressive turnaround, but like, and I'm very happy for Daniel. Super great. But it just is rude. It's just rude. Like, you could have had a smoother transition that wasn't so in your face to Nick DeVries. I do want to note that Seb was doing interviews for some reason at this time, and he was asked about it, and he went into like a very lengthy response where he was like, I'm super happy for Daniel. Like, this is wonderful to see him back on the grid again. But like, I can't say that I'm happy for Daniel without saying how sad I am for Nick, because he wasn't given a chance. He had something given to him, and it was stripped away before he could like settle in, you know? So I just love to hear that from Seb, because Seb is just such a wholesome guy. Also, Lewis was asked about how he felt F1 operating on like such an aggressive level, and Lewis was like, that's not how F1 works, that's how Red Bull works. Which is 100% accurate. Red Bull has a horrible track record of making and breaking dreams in the span of like 3 nanoseconds. Like, it's what they thrive on. So after the announcement, we didn't really hear from Nick, who to this point had only removed F1 driver from his Instagram bio. There were pics of Toto and Nick meeting for lunch in Monaco, and I saw someone caption it with Toto adopting his 8th reserve driver, which made me laugh. But obviously, I don't even know if Nick will even want to do that right now. I feel like he never wants to step foot on a track for like a period of time. But like finally, I think before the Hungarian Grand Prix, Nick DeVries posted on Instagram, and it's a picture of him as like a child. He's like 9 in a racing suit, and it just broke my heart more. And he wrote, "A short note from me. After recent events, I decided to take some time for myself away from social media, which I will continue to do. I'd like to thank Red Bull and Scuderia AlphaTauri for the opportunity to live my dream. Of course, it hurts that the F1 chance I dreamed of for so long ended prematurely, but life is not a destination, it's a journey, and sometimes you have to take the hard road to get where you want to be. I'm grateful for our privileged lives, proud of our journey, and my family. This is just another experience to move on and look forward to the next chapter." Oh. I did see that Yuki gave a statement. I think it was this race weekend. I don't remember exactly what he said, but it was basically like, it was a sweet message to Nick, like how he learned so much from him, not just on track, but off track, and how apparently when Yuki was super impressed by how well Nick speaks English. Anyway, he's like, he gave him like a very heartwarming message in the media, which Nick has not received, so it was nice of Yuki to do. Wow, why am I tearing up? I've known about this for weeks. All right, moving on to rumors. There are so many rumors circulating, it's like wild. Some say that a bunch of teams have exceeded the cost cap, but like the audit is still in progress, so TBD on that. A lot are on the Ferrari boys, but literally no clue on like where or how those two will move. Should they? Yes. Will they? I don't know. They seem to have like a Stockholm Syndrome situation going on with Ferrari. And I mean, if Ferrari could get rid of them too, but who the fuck wants to go to Ferrari right now? Of course, the biggest rumor that everyone keeps talking about is that Checo is going to get axed. I've heard people think Yuki's going to replace him, which would be terrible for just like everyone involved. Like, I refuse to allow his soul to be crushed into a million pieces. He's 21. He doesn't deserve it yet. Like, Alex survived, but I feel like barely. I don't need that to happen to Yuki. Others are saying Daniel is vying for the seat, which he probably is, to be honest, but Christian and Dr. Helmut Marko are pretty adamantly saying that Daniel is not taking the second Red Bull seat, but that could also just be for now. Speaking of Dr. Helmut Marko, he like single-handedly keeps the rumor mill turning in F1. Like, he needs his mic muted. He needs, like, to be shoved in a broom closet, muzzled, like, silencioed, Petrificus totalis. All right. Point is, anything to keep him, like, the fuck away from the media. Because every time he gets near someone with a microphone, he becomes totally unhinged and says, like, very unnecessary things that either fuel rumors or fuel drama or like whatever. Today, or over the race weekend, he said that Checo has finally woken up from his world championship dream. Why would you say that? Like, it's true, but why would you say it out loud to the public? Why? Also, hilarious side note, Louis Fonsi, who sings Despacito, commented on ESPN F1's post about that quote and wrote, "Wow," and then the facepalm emoji, which, to be honest, that man has a way of words, even in Instagram comments. Okay, lap 2, the Hungarian Grand Prix. So before I dive in, I actually have a bit of an inside scoop, and by that, I just mean that my brother, my cousin, and their friend were at the Hungarian Grand Prix. They had a great time. I posted a video of like a little recap of what they did, which included seeing Pierre and Yuki in the flesh. My brother was very sweet. He like staked out a hotel waiting for someone to arrive, and he happened to see Gasinoda alive. They were also right up on a hill, right by the start, so they could see everything. They did have to wake up like super early to get there, because the day before when they went for quali, they didn't know they were supposed to arrive early, and they ended up having a seat that wasn't next to a television. it was raining or whatever. It was just unpleasant. I feel like they didn't know what was going on. My cousin was trying to like listen to the radio, but it kept breaking up. It was in Hungarian half the time. It was just not good. So they got there super early and they could see everything. By the way, my cousin, he just graduated. He's going to work at SpaceX, some sort of engineer that works at SpaceX. And so they happened to be staying at the Hilton where all the McLaren mechanics were. And he got into a long conversation with one of them and they were just like geeking out about each other's jobs. Anyway, about the race though, like if you guys remember, the Hungarian race was not like thrilling. It was kind of boring. But what was wild is my brother texted me after and said he had so much fun, can't wait to watch with me every week now. Spoiler, he never watches with me before, and also I don't think he's realized it's like at 5 a.m. when I'm watching. But I guess there's something about watching it unfold live, even if you're like on a patch of grass from 7 a.m. until 3 p.m. whenever the race starts. Me personally, I would imagine like camping out for 5 hours to reserve a spot in the heat with mediocre views and like limited access to commentary would make for a poor experience because like I need to watch like every single second and rewatch again. But I guess the energy around you just sort of makes up for it. Obviously though, if I did go, I'd probably have to come home and rewatch the race like 3 times, but it still sounds very fun and I want to go. Also, what happened in the Hungarian Grand Prix is that Lando. So during the podium ceremony, Lando went for his traditional champagne spray, which is where he like slams the bottle into the ground and like a geyser spurt comes out. In Austria, we saw Lando drench like the poor lady trying to hug Max Verstappen for a photo op, because he just like smashed and directed it at Max, completely like unaware or didn't give a fuck that he was like attacking this poor lady. So in Hungary, Lando continued this tradition where he slammed the bottle onto the ground, but instead of the ground, he chose the stand for first position on the podium. So he slammed it on there and Max's trophy fell over and smashed into a bunch of pieces. By the way, this trophy took like 40,000 euros to make, handmade over 6 months. Insane. And Lando just smashed it. And when he smashed it, he allowed like half a glance at this trophy before continuing to spray everyone. And then when he finished, when the bottle was empty, I guess he like pointed out to Max and Max is going like this and they're both like cracking up. And in the media pen, Lando told a reporter it was Max's fault because he placed the trophy too close to the edge. And then when Max came to the same reporter, she told him that Lando blamed him. And when confronted, Lando was trying to gaslight this poor reporter and saying that she said that it was Max's fault and Lando would never say that. It was entertaining. Also, during the post-race press conference, he was asked what happened and he just said, I don't know. It just fell over, which reminded me of that Prisoner of Azkaban scene where Harry like reached out for the night bus and it arrived and the guy was like, what you doing down there? And Harry's like, I fell over. He's like, what you fall over for? And he's like, I didn't do it on purpose. That's what that reminded me of. Anyway, then on social, Lando shared the post of the broken trophy on his story and wrote, sorry, not sorry. Then he shared a link to kintsugi. I don't know if I'm saying that right, but it's a Japanese pottery practice of repairing cracks by filling it with gold, which made me laugh. Lando was so unhinged on social after the race. He posted a collection of selfies from the car holding up a number 2, wearing a papaya bucket hat, and Alex was sitting next to him in the car. And you can see, like, as Alex gets progressively more unamused as the series of selfies goes on, which is hilarious. Anyway, back to the trophy that broke, though. My brother was obviously in Budapest, and he sent me pictures of him in the shop that made Max's trophy and apparently is going to remake Max's trophy. It was a very beautiful shop, but I don't even know how he found it. I don't know if he looked for it or if he accidentally stumbled upon it, but I can't believe they're remaking it. I really want to know who's paying for it. I think it should be Zach because I think Zach should pay for everything for a while. But like, does F1 pay for it? Does the Hungarian Grand Prix pay for it? Does Lando? Does Max? I don't know. All right. Lap 3, off-duty F1. So Christian hosted a barbecue after Silverstone because everyone was around and he lives nearby. Daniel.jpg posted a cute collection from there. So it turns out Christian invited like the entire paddock to the barbecue and about half of them showed up. I saw some people online saying that he was annoyed about it because I guess he said something. I didn't actually see what he said. But like, I don't think he was annoyed. Like Christian loves to banter. Christian, you just have to look for like that little twinkle in his eye and know he's just full of shits and giggles. Like that clip of him at Spa where he taped the Ferrari logo on a fan's hat. I was literally dying. There's like nothing he won't do for the fans. He's so petty. So like if he said something in the media, it was definitely like joking. I don't think he wanted the other half of the grid at his barbecue anyway. Everyone he wanted there came. Alex was there. Checo was there. Max was there. Daniel was there. I think Yuki was there. Very wholesome. I think it's so cute that he hosted a barbecue. And it was very like British countryside. You know, they have like the Land Rover, whatever, and like they're all in wellies and like there's just like fields and like it's just so cute. So another big thing that happened after Silverstone was Wimbledon. A lot of the drivers went. Charles and Pierre went with their girlfriends. And also Arthur Lecourt was there without his girlfriend, so he just fifth wheeled. Zhou Guanyu was there looking fly AF. He said it's his first tennis match, which is crazy. Oscar and his girlfriend went, but look like they're like in 10th grade. They look so young. I think Zach Brown actually took them too, which makes them look even younger because it looks like a dad taking his son and his like new girlfriend to the tennis. George and Carmen were there and they're just like king and queen of all things posh. It's a shame that George drives for Mercedes and couldn't go to Christian's barbecue because he would thrive. He was built for that setting. He was built for all of it. They're just like, they just both need to do like an English countryside photo shoot together. They belong there. I believe that George and Carmen were the only people in F1 to make the Wimbledon Instagram grid. And they're just iconic. And like her ability to pull together like a collective vibe in their outfits is unmatched. They look so good. I can't. They look so good. Speaking of Wimbledon, Carlos Alvarez won Wimbledon. And Carlos Sainz was asked during a press conference if he thinks this is a big moment for Spanish athletes and if he's feeling the pressure. And Max immediately butts in with, to win Wimbledon. I love when he sasses dumb reporter questions because a lot of them are dumb. All right, so testing was another thing that happened. Obviously, we talked about it with Daniel. The only reason I mentioned is that there was like a cute collection of all the reserve drivers and ex-drivers. It was Mick and Seb and Daniel. And there was a cute video of Seb bringing something to Daniel's car and Daniel like looking around, and when he realizes it's Seb, he just like grins for his full face. It was so cute. Another quick update, Nicholas Latifi. Remember him? Nicholas Latifi announced that he's been taking a break from racing and in that time has decided to pursue an MBA. Good for him, getting that education. Also, Kevin Magnussen, in big life news, has had another baby and the baby's name is Agnes and they're like a very cute blonde family and I just can't. He's so cute as a family man. I refuse to believe it's affected his driving. It probably has, but like, it's worth it. A very cute thing that happened was that one of Kelly Piquet's relatives posted a photo of them like all hanging out in the water, I'm assuming in Monaco, and it was Nick, DeVries, Lando, and Max like in the ocean, and it was so cute. I'm so happy that Max is hanging out with Nick. Nick was also at Penelope's birthday party. There was a picture posted. He was one of the attendees. So was the dad. What's the dad's name? Daniel Kvyat. Daniel Kvyat was also there, so glad to see he's not an absentee father. It was Max, Daniel, and Nick. Nick and Daniel probably had a lot to talk about. There was also some great Fernando Alonso paddock content. He did the Sophia Richie walk, like, you know, with the holding the camera and you hand it off, like the da da da. It was really good. I don't know what I just sang. All right. The sisterhood of the traveling Ricardo is what I'm calling this segment, because for 2 races in a row, Daniel has just been traveling with a baby driver. To Hungary, Lando and Daniel flew together in a private jet and posted a wholesome carousel, each one to their own grid. And they're so cute. Loved them. And then George and Daniel went to Spa. They went to Spa, not the Spa. They went to Spa together, also in a private jet. No one else was there, and I thought that was very wholesome. And I just love that Daniel's hitching rides with all of these random drivers. I want to see who he goes to the next race with. Also, must note, Heineken released a commercial with Max. And it's where it's who's the best driver? And he's out with his friends, and they keep handing him the keys to drive them home. And they're always really embarrassing cars, and he's hiding because people are screaming at him from outside the window, and he's so embarrassed. And in the final clip, it shows him drinking beer so he can't drive them home. So they leave themselves, and they look through the window, and he was drinking Heineken Zero. So he then drove home in a cool car. And I thought it was really fun, and he did a great job. He has an acting career in front of him. I never would have thought. Also, the camera angle in the commercial looked exactly like Night Changes, the One Direction music video, and everyone keeps editing him into the music video, and it's really funny because it's they're all on a date with a girl, and it's showing them from the girl's perspective. That's how they were showing Max in the commercial. So it's very funny. All right, moving on. Pierre's beef, aka beef, Pierre has with 90% of the grid. So the first one is the beef between Pierre and Carlos continues. I want to remind everyone very quickly that not too long ago, Pierre did a Q&A where he was asked who all his best friends were on the grid, and he said Charles, Yuki, and Carlos. 2 weeks later, he started beefing with Carlos because Carlos first said that beefing with Carlos because he said that Carlos was impeding him, which Carlos was, but he had a car in front of him, so he wasn't fully at fault. Then in another race, Pierre decided that Carlos pushed him off track, which I don't think Carlos did. But after that race, Carlos was doing interviews in the media pen, and Pierre literally shoves past him and is don't push me like that, Carlos. And the interviewer was what's he talking about? And Carlos was no fucking clue. In Spanish. And then last week at press conferences, Carlos and Pierre were paired with each other into the group conference, and they were sat next to each other, and they are physically ignoring each other with their entire bodies. They have put their entire body into the act of ignoring each other, literally turned away like this. In addition to, I don't think they've made up. I haven't seen that they've made up, but I think Pierre is still holding on to this. And another beef that Pierre has picked up was with Guan Yu. So I have no proof this has continued on, but I have a very strong feeling based on Pierre's track record, it's not going to be let go that quickly. So basically in Hungary, Joe had a failure at the start, and it caused him to delay getting off the line. And then either as part of a malfunction or because he got over eager or something, he ended up tapping Daniel, who tapped into an Alpine, who tapped into another Alpine, and the race was over before it even started. It was such a bad crash, Ocon's seat broke in half. And yes, that was not great of Guan Yu, but I really fear for him because I'm pretty sure he's now on Pierre's shit list. And if there's anything we learned, if you fuck with Pierre, intentionally or not, you're on his shit list for life. Ask Esteban Ocon. Pierre is very Game of Thrones with his beef. If he had access to torture chambers, I fear what would happen. Anyway, lap 5, trackside at Spa. It was Fernando's birthday. He turned 42. He is so fucking sprightly though. There is no better word to describe him other than sprightly. Also, I loved his cakes. There were 2. Mike Crack presented him with 1, and there was a second behind him, and they were just they looked so homemade and looked like they actually tasted good, which a lot of these cakes we know don't. And I love that. It seemed very appropriate for a 42-year-old. Also, Bam Bam on the track. Checo's dad was there. And Max's dad was there, and his nephew, who looks exactly like Max, was there, and it was his first race, and he had a little headphones on, and he had like a little hug with Max, and it was really cute. Also, Max's half-sister was there, who was also so cute. She just like beaming up at Max. She loves him so much. It is so cute. Also, Oscar was there. Do you guys remember, by the way, when in Silverstone, Lando's parents were grandparents were watching from the garage and they got labeled as Oscar's grandparents? And you can see the grandmother mouthing at the TV, "No, we are not." And then after, Lando was like, "Did you guys see your Oscar's grandparents now?" Anyway, so his dad was there. And he had a great outfit. He made Papaya look good. I actually was very impressed with Oscar's dad's outfit. Also, by the way, I know it's been 2 weeks since I said I have like zero opinion on Oscar and think he has like no personality whatsoever. But and then Dias was like, in 1 year you're gonna be like, he has so much riz. I won't go that far, but I am already singing a different tune. And for the record, my opinion on Oscar changed before he won the sprint race. I still won't say he has like riz, obviously, but I want to say that my opinion on Oscar changing like before he started winning reminds me of what my brother always makes fun of me for when we're watching like a mystery movie, because I'll figure something out like 5 seconds before it happens on screen, and he's like, "That doesn't count," and I'm like, "It so does count." Same here. I figured Oscar was cool like 5 seconds before he started showing personality, so I'm counting it as a win. Also, Oscar's mom is iconic on Twitter. What he lacks in personality, not what he lacks in personality. The Piastri family thrives on Twitter. Like, truly, like, there is no better place for them than Twitter. Remember when I thought Oscar had a personality? Because he tweeted after the Alpine announcement. And then I saw this entire thread from Oscar where he was, like, complaining about lacking DRS and F2. And it's like a year-long thing. It's, like, very funny. But, yeah, so Oscar's mom, like, retweeted and reliked a bunch of stuff about Otmar leaving, which, side-eye. And then also she tweeted at one point, like, "I'm still here, I'm just pouring myself a stiff drink." I love her. She's one to watch. Okay, so the national anthem in Hungary. What in the Eurovision Elton John was happening? Like, I applaud him for taking a unique approach to the anthem, but also, like, wow, first of all, I kept seeing like Lewis like jamming out to it, and I was like, how is he enjoying this? And then I realized I think he had AirPods in, and he was jamming out to something completely different. There you could also see like Oscar and Lando like side-eyeing him, like, what is he dancing to? And then he started taking pictures, and they're like, what is he taking pictures of? Anyway, the funniest part was first George, who literally can never hold it together for a wacky national anthem performance. Like, he fully, like, he can't even pretend not to smile. He's just dying. And then Fernando was looking around to see, like half smiling to see if anyone else was, like, laughing. And when he was like, no one else is laughing, he pretended to, like, turn his thing into, like, oh, I appreciate this. It was like, it was like, oh, okay. But his eyes were telling a different story. He was cackling with his eyes. I loved it. Also, very random, but it was very wet in Spa, shocker. There was a sea of umbrellas, and like that side by side of like the sea of umbrellas and the weather radar just never gets old. It's like it should honestly be the national photo of Belgium. But my favorite moment was George posted a picture of him in the rain with an umbrella, and all the comments were like, are you sure that's not sweat, dude? Making fun of George's accidentally viral moments is truly the one thing that bonds every F1 fan, I think. Like, he's so easy to laugh at and with. He, like, makes fun of himself, but it's funny. Anyways, that's it for the digital warm-up. On to the race rhyme. Welcome to Spa a whole month early. This will help us avoid the rainfall, surely. Imagine our surprise when the place is flooding. Grab your fries and brollies while we wait for something. Guess Alpine got bored staring at the rain and twiddling their thumbs, so they're like, let's launch silly season early. Otmar, so long, chum. Max goes fastest in quality and almost brings home pole position, but it's back of the line, broski. You changed your gearbox and that's the condition. Oh no, 6th place for Max Verstappen? We'll definitely be able to stop him. But first it's a sprint race delayed by rain and 5 whole laps behind a safety car. So like they were flying, but no one really got that far. With only 11 laps, Oscar led for a bit, but then Max went on ahead. And Checo and Lewis collided and the FIA was basically like, off with Lewis's head. Max won, followed by Oscar in P2 and Pierre in P3. Super happy for Pierre for so magically ending his DNF spree. But also, how about that papaya automobile? Or as Lewis likes to say, did you see that rocket ship on wheels? Race day is finally here and Charles is on pole. He maybe just can, but finally he's not in like P10. But also not in P1, because Checo gets by pretty quickly. And only 17 laps later, Max rolls by like, hey, did you miss me? Also at the start, Oscar and Carlos had a situation. Both DNF'd. There go the hopes of the Australian nation. There were some fun overtakes, but not the wildest GP. What was wild was Max and his engineer, GP. Max is like, I've got time. Should we like practice a pit stop? And GP's like, Max, please, just stop. So that's Max, Checo, Charles on the podium in Belgium. Max is breaking trophies, Charles is breaking hearts, and Checo is breaking his streak of failure. Here's to new momentum. That's it for part 1 of the 2023 F1 season. Up next, drama and pettiness. It's time for a silly season. Okay, on to analysis. By the way, I do appreciate that the FIA did try to move this like a month earlier, so they're finally like learning from their mistakes. It didn't work. We didn't beat the rain. It still rained. At least on a race day, so we got lucky. But anyways, as I do on sprint weekends, I'm going to start analyzing the sprint race and the shootout and then move on to quality in the race, so it's grouped more logically, a concept that seems to elude the FIA. All right, starting with the shootout, Nico was unable to set a time, which was Haas's fault. He had to go, I think, request to participate in the sprint from the Stews. Also, Lance went into the barriers, which red flagged the session, and because there were only 30 seconds left and he crashed into the wall, the wheels like literally off the car, they basically had to stop the whole thing. So anyone who was on a fast lap, out. Max gets pole by 11 thousandths of a second. Piastri is 11 thousandths of a second behind him, and Carlos is in third. They're all separated by less than like a second apart. So the starting grid for the sprint race is Max, Oscar, Carlos, Charles, Lando, Pierre, Lewis, Checo, Esteban, George, Daniel, Alex, Logan, Lance, Fernando, Yuki, Valtteri, Kevin, Joe, and Nico. So the sprint race itself was super delayed because of the rain. I was incredibly confused because before bed, I checked and it was supposed to be on at 7, I swear. Then I woke up. No, well, it's supposed to be on its... sprint was supposed to be on at 7. And I woke up at 7. I woke up and then I went to watch it at 7. It wasn't there. Now it's at 7:24. So I left and came back and now it's at 7:35. And then I left and came back 7:59. I'm like, am I tripping? Like, can I not read time? And then I realized because I kept delaying and instead of playing the whole delay, ESPN was just pushing it out. And I was just very confused. Anyways, the view of Spa, I think I said this, like, is seriously hilarious to me. Like, the side-by-side of the weather radar and this, like, sea of umbrellas is just so funny. By the way, throwback to that guy 2 years ago who was standing in the pouring rain eating his fries. What a guy. I also really enjoyed the radio conversation between Toto and George as they were waiting for the sprint to start. Toto radioed into George and asked if he was wet in the car, and George was like, no, I'm under a tent. And he's like, I just feel bad for all the fans out there. And Toto's like, we can remove the tent so you can get like the full experience. And George is like, I don't think the engineers will like that, but like, Toto, you can come out and join us so you can get the full experience. And Toto's like, no, I'm good. Like, oh, I'm pretty sure it's getting wet in the garage. Bye. Anyway, so finally we hear that the rain is about to stop. And then we'll have an hour before the next bout of rain. The rain does in fact stop, so who knew they could successfully read a weather radar? They have to clear the track of standing water, of which there is a lot, and then they'll start. So when we're starting, we get told there's going to be 2 laps behind the safety car. We end up doing 5 laps behind the safety car with only 11 laps of the actual sprint. At some point, Carlos gets on the radio and is like, I don't know if you guys can talk to FIA or something, but like, here's a thought. Maybe we could just like wait a little longer for the track to dry instead of driving around behind the safety car for 15 minutes. Honestly, I think I said this about Fernando before, but really Carlos, maybe it's a Spanish thing. Now that I think about it, Carlos really does it all. He's like 3 Kens for the price of 1. His job is track, garage, secret lair, aka driver, engineer, and stew. I don't know where the stews live. 3 Kens for the price of 1. And an Allen. Carlos is an Allen too. Anyway, finally we're racing. Immediately, like the bottom half of the grid pit, so it's like literally 10 cars in the row. The fact that there wasn't an accident is a fucking miracle. And so Oscar, who was P2, comes out P11, but he's the first car on the track that has pitted. So there's 10 cars in front of him that still need to pit, which they do, like very soon, because no one can drive on those tires. And Oscar is leading the sprint, and it's so exciting, and everyone is losing their minds. And then in lap 3, Fernando gets a safety car because he went into the barriers, like, aggressively. I'm telling you, the birthday curse is real. This was all happening on his birthday, and that's why it didn't work out for him. Because Fernando doesn't make mistakes like that. And you know why? Because it wasn't him, it was the curse. Anyway, safety car means a rolling start, which means Max is right behind Oscar, and which means that the inevitable is going to happen, and Max is just too fast and overtakes him. But it was so exciting to watch Oscar for a moment. Also, I saw the funniest TikTok. It's it's a scene from the Barbie movie when she's driving along, like when she's driving to the real world and singing to herself, and then Ken pops up in the back seat and like she screams and he screams, and that's like the meme was like that's like Oscar when he sees Max in his mirror, and I died. It was so accurate. Okay, so then Lewis Hamilton tries to overtake Checo, and they're perilously close. Get it? But they do touch, for which Lewis received a 5-second penalty and 2 penalty points. Sorry, but that's like way over dramatic. Like where the punishment so does not warrant the crime, or the crime does not warrant the punishment. Whatever the phrase is, doesn't make sense. Doesn't match up. But anyways, there was just no reason for that level of response. Nothing happened. Checo finished. Like whatever. Anyways, the sprint race ends with Max winning. Whatever. Oscar in 2nd and Pierre in 3rd. And honestly, it's such a happy podium. It's Oscar's best performance yet, even though in his interview he's like, well, I guess it's a good start. Getting 2nd in whatever this is, which made me laugh because no one knows what this is. And also Pierre is just so happy because he's just like, he's had such a tough season so far. And also, like, I just love when he drives for Antoine, which he always does in Spa. Like, his entire, like, being changes. And I just want to cry for him. He also arranged a run for Antoine and Delano, who's the guy who died a few weeks ago. He's just so lovely. Anyways, yay for Pierre and Oscar. Woo, Max. All right, let's move on to quali, real quali, which took place on Friday and set the grid for Sunday. Lando aggressively goes into the gravel and seems to have picked up like a lot of damage in Q1, but somehow he manages to drive all the way to Q3, which is impressive. Daniel got a lap time deleted and was out in Q1. Sad. In Q2, Kevin got a penalty for impeding Charles, which he did quite aggressively, like full on, like might as well have just been parked horizontally across the road, and which meant that he dropped 3 places, making his starting position 16th. And then Max in Q2 only performed 9th best because I think he was struggling with the dampness of the track, and he was pissed. And like he's on the radio and he's saying, I should have just pushed 2 laps in a row, like I said. And then there's like a very heavy sigh, like, and then GP's like, but you're through, Max. And he says, I don't give a fuck if I'm through in P10. It's just shit execution. And then GP goes, okay, and when the track was 2 seconds quicker for your final lap, but you didn't have any energy left, how would that have gone down? But you tell me what you want to do in Q3 and we'll do it. You tell us tires, you tell us setup, you tell us how we'll do it. I love him. But I just think that, Max clearly had a moment because it doesn't matter what position you qualify in Q2 because it starts from scratch in Q3. But I get it. He didn't perform as well as he thought of and he got frustrated, which obviously is what makes him a winner, right? Like he can't be complacent when he doesn't do as well as he thinks. In Q3, Max goes the fastest, and gets pole position. He does apologize on the radio and says, "Sorry, GP, for my long rant." And GP goes, "Slowly getting used to it, Max. I don't know what's taking him so long. He should be very used to it by now." Anyway, Max had a gearbox change, so he actually gets a 5-grid penalty, so he's actually going to start in 6th, which was terrible for him. Charles qualified 2nd, so he, with Max's penalty, he gets pole position. Yay, Charles! So the starting grid for Sunday's race is as follows. Charles, Checo, Lewis, Carlos, Oscar, Max, Lando, George, Fernando, Lance, Yuki, Pierre, Valtteri, Esteban, Alexander, Alex, Kevin, Guan Yu, Logan, Daniel, and Nico. Okay, on to the race. And I'm going to be honest, we could have stopped the weekend after Saturday. Those days were super fun. There were a couple of moments here and there in the race, but, you know, we're used to these kinds of races by now. So let's start at the start, because as always, that's the most thrilling. So Charles got a good start, but I mean, Checo is in a Red Bull, which we can finally say positively, because he's able to overtake Charles in like just a few corners. And speaking of positive things to say about Red Bull, Max is already in P4 when he started in P6, and we're like 2 corners in. So the biggest drama, however, that happened was between Carlos and Oscar. So right at the start, Oscar tries to like go around Carlos on the inside, which basically puts them like 3 cars across the track with Carlos, Lewis, and Oscar. And since Carlos had 0 room on his side because of Lewis, he ends up going into Oscar, who also hits the wall because he truly did try to fit his car in the narrowest gap ever. Like, the narrowest. So there's a whole bunch of damage. Oscar basically has to pull over to the side of the road like very soon after, and his car has to be taken off track. Which gives us a yellow flag, but they get rid of it so fast we didn't even get a safety car. Carlos goes on for like 25 more laps, which is wild because there's a giant hole in the side of his car. Massive. They literally also brought him in for a tire change in lap 8 and didn't even try to repair the hole. Like sometimes they'll like duct tape holes. They just like change the wheels and I'm like, bye. Wild. I don't know why they bothered. Not only is, like, he not going to get anywhere, it's also, like, bad for the car. Like, why waste that when you're clearly not going to be able to finish the race? Anyway, what had happened, though, I laughed at Oscar's radio because he just went, "I don't know what he was doing. He just moved into me. Like, I didn't exist." Which, A, sad. B, what an existentialist, like, dramatic statement. It's so aggressive. He moved in like I didn't exist. That's, like, deep. Anyways, after the race, Carlos said he thinks that some of it is down to, I mean, everyone's obviously debating whose fault it was. Some people say it's very clearly Carlos's. I wouldn't go that far. I don't think it would. He had nowhere to go. And Oscar did shove his way into, like, an impossible corner. But after the race, Carlos said he thinks some of Oscar's inexperience is showing, and, like, his age is showing, basically, that he would make that sort of move, which I think he thought was polite, but, like, because it's true, like, Oscar kind of blocked him in. Carlos had nowhere to go. The commentators made a similar point, but the fact that he said, like, it's because he's so young... basically, like, very specifically reminds me of that lyric in All Too Well, the 10-minute version, where she was like, "You said maybe if we were closer in age, it would have been fine," which made me want to die. Like, whenever someone, like, references age or, like, youth as a reason something's not happening or happening, just kind of rude. But probably true. Like, inexperience, yeah. So anyway, the rest of the race was kind of boring. There were some incredible overtakes, but in general, nothing that exciting happened. Alpine had a great race, despite finishing only 8th and 11th. They were both serving some sick overtakes. The commentator literally said at one point, he just pressed fast forward, which made me laugh. Also, shout out to Yuki, who had an insane race, finishing the points, and it was so exciting. But really the two standout moments for me, I know this is a very short race analysis, but really the standout moments for me were the radios. So first, Lando. Lando was struggling a lot at the beginning of the race, like a lot, and his radio was sassy as per usual. Lando gets a radio giving him some info, and Lando goes, yeah, this isn't helpful at all. And his engineer is like, we're trying our best here. And Lando's like, I can't understand you, mate. Chill. Lando did end up going a bit faster at the end. Honestly, at one point when we were threatened with rain, everyone but the drivers seemed to feel it. Like in the grandstands, the umbrellas came out, the pit walls were all like, huh? But the drivers were like, fine. But really the only evidence of the fact that there was any sort of moisture in the air was Lando's performance, because it seems as soon as like there's dampness all around, the McLaren just starts flying. Well, his McLaren. Oscar was sat alone in his garage. After the race, though, Lando was asked about what happened at the beginning, and the interviewer was like, it was steering issues. And he was like, where'd you hear that? And she's like, from McLaren? And he's like, no, there were no steering issues. I was just that slow. And as he's doing his interview, all these drivers keep walking by and clapping him on the shoulder. And the interviewer is like, wow, you're getting a lot of sympathy pats. And he's like, oh, I know. Lando. Max had an incredible radio. Also, by the way, he had an annoyingly great race. We had 17 laps of him not leading. Though I can't say him not being in the lead made anything that much more interesting. Especially since he made his way to the top 3 so fast. But that was truly it for him. I mean, same as usual. I think he finished by over 20 seconds ahead of Checo. But the standout moment for him was his radios, which were so comically hilarious. Like, the only obvious conclusion is that him and GP very much need this break. So the first radio message was GP going, use your head, please, Max. And Max goes, are we both doing this or what? And GP's like, just follow my instructions. And Max is like, but I want to know. And GP's like, Max, please just follow my instructions and do it. The second one was GP calling in and saying, we're getting rain in 10-ish minutes. What do you want to do? And Max goes, I don't know. I can't see the weather radar, can I? And then GP gets on and goes, you used a lot of tire on that outlap, Max. I'm not sure that was sensible. Not sensible, Max. And then this one was the best. And then GP gets on the radio and says, this tire had reasonable deg in the first stint. I'd ask you to use your head a bit more. To which Max replies, I could also push on and we could do another stop. A little bit of pit stop training, no? And GP just goes, no, not this time. I'm actually dead at the pit stop training. He's literally trolling everyone. Like, he's so far ahead. He's like, should we practice? Anyway. I always get stressed when the post-race in the cool-down room. Oh, by the way, cool-down room. It was Max first, Checo second, Charles third. And so we're in the cool-down room, and Charles is in there, and then he's joined by Checo. And Checo goes, you had a good start, no? And Charles literally side-eyes him and snorts and goes, yeah. It's giving, you know what it's giving? It's, for anyone who watches Summer I Turned Pretty, it's giving Belly asking Jeremiah, why don't you want to kiss me? We all know the answer, bro. Why are you asking? So then they're all trying to figure out what happened to Carlos. And then this was a great moment. So there was, at one point, Max got on the radio and said that the wind was so strong, he was going like this with the steering wheel. He was losing control of the steering wheel. And the commentators were I've literally never heard anyone say that. There's also no wind. The trees are not moving but an inch. And then they're in the cool down room, and Charles was like, "Oh my god, I had to clutch the wheel at like a rouge." And Max was like, "I know, there was so much wind." So he was fully redeemed. Even the commentators were like, "I guess it was windy in the car." Anyway, stat of the week: Max has now won from 9 different positions, which is equal to Fernando and Seb, I think. So Checo's dad is there during the podium ceremony, grinning like a madman. Max's dad is there too, and he's got a polite smile on his face. But he is holding a child who turns out is Max's sister, and she's so cute. I can't. She's beaming up at him like he is the greatest thing she's ever seen. And then I'm gonna cry. What is wrong with me? After the race, when he runs to hug all the engineers, his sister was there, and wow, what the fuck? And the way he hugged her, was so wholesome. I apologize. Anyway, anytime I'm not gonna say this, I'm gonna cry again. But I just wanted to say that Checo, every time I see Checo's dad, it reminds me of that story of how Charles called Checo after the Mexican Grand Prix to say how happy it made him to this is so pathetic. To say how happy it made him to see Checo celebrating with his family, and how he would I can't get this out. How happy it would make him to celebrate with his dad. It doesn't matter what's happening to Charles, by the way. It could be happy, it could be sad, it could be neutral. It makes me cry. So, a standout moment during the post-race conference was that they were asked for their plans during the summer break, and Max said that his plans were cardio and wrist training, and then goes, "No, not in that way. I know what you're thinking." And Charles and Checo were both just like lulled to death. Max gets so aggressive, like sassy aggressive, not like aggressive with the media. It's funny. Side note, he's not mentioned, but him and Lando went out to a Martin Garrix show after the race, and immediately posted it. So that's fun. Most importantly, though, about what happened after the race that we need to talk about is Max's trophy. So as they're taking their team photo, the sign with like both of their names on it and their positions, so that's like in front of them, and as they all they take the photo and then the champagne starts spraying, they all run towards the camera, that sign gets knocked over into Max's trophy, which falls and breaks. And everyone's reaction is so funny. Max is like, "Again?" And everyone's laughing, but this trophy thankfully is not like a 40,000 euro, 60 years, whatever, however long it took to make the other one. It's not like porcelain. It's just like a shit made out of metal Legos. I don't know how to describe it. So the Red Bull team was like, "We can fix this back at the factory." You can already see the engineers at work trying to fix the trophy. So that's okay. But just like, okay, let's break this down. So remember that Max has won 10 out of 12 races this year. For 2, he didn't win, but he still got a second place trophy. So that's 12 chances for a trophy to break. And yet they didn't start breaking until last week, and it's 2 in a row. When Lando was a menace on the podium, and now, like, I don't know, maybe Lando snuck in between the engineers, knocked it over, and ran away. I mean, yeah, this one's definitely easier to put back together, but, like, still, I do not know what this means. But I do not believe that 2 broken trophies in a row is a coincidence. It means something. I don't know if it's ominous. I don't know if it's not ominous, but it means something. Anyway, on to results. So the official driver of the day today was Max. He won with 15% of the vote, which is not very much. I honestly think this might have been his first driver of the days in a while, because no one really wants to work for him because he's just off. Not to say that what he doesn't do is not hard and doesn't require an immense amount of skill, which it does. But like, but I do think he definitely deserves it for his drive from P9 to P1. Yeah. I also want to shout out Yuki because I'll take any opportunity to shout out Yuki, and he just had a great race, finishing the points, is on cloud 9. And also, side note, I'm just really happy for Yuki because Michael Italiano, the trainer who used to be with Daniel, is staying with Yuki. And I'm very happy about that. And I can't wait to see them all eat together. That'll be fun. I also want to shout out, if we're taking like a vote for the whole weekend, I want to shout out Oscar because P2, also Pierre, P3, like those are pretty good. So like I really think there's a lot more to highlight in the sprint race in all 11 laps. Anyway, Dick in the box. Dick in the box. I'm gonna have to say Carlos and Oscar because I can see both sides, but the result was Dicky, so I'm just gonna give it to them both. I also want to give it to Max for his radios, even though it's like their rapport, he apologized, they're like mutually sassy. It was a wild radio. I truly think him and GP desperately need a break. And then also perhaps Gravity for the trophy. Gravity has been a dick for 2 weeks now. Anyway, the result of the race was Max in first, followed by Checo, Charles, Lewis, Fernando, George, Lando, Esteban, Lance, Yuki, Pierre, Valtteri, Guan Yu, Alex, Kevin, Daniel, Logan, Nico, Carlos, and Oscar. So the current driver standings are Max with 314 points, Checo with 189 points, Fernando with 149 points, Lewis with 148 points. Fuck, Fernando needs to get his shit together. Charles with 99 points, George with 99 points, Carlos with 92 points, Lando with 69 points, Lance with 47, and Esteban with 35. I think this was the week that Charles overtook Carlos in the standings because Carlos has been giving us a very consistent performance. Charles has had more successful instances, you know? The constructors is as follows: Red Bull with 503, followed by Mercedes with 247, followed by Aston with 196, Ferrari with 191, McLaren with 103, Alpine with 57, Williams with 11, Haas with 11, Alfa with 9, AlphaTauri with 3. All thanks to Yuki. Though they're last, but not 0, which is where Haas and Williams were for a hefty portion in previous years. Anyway, that's it for the Belgian Grand Prix, and what a whirlwind of the first half of the season. It's a good thing that the recap will last about 30 seconds because the recap is Max won every race. Besides the 2 he got second place in and Checo won. The end. I will definitely be back for an episode during the summer break. I'm going to Toronto to see the Jonas Brothers. I'm going to Toronto in like mid-August, but before I leave, I will be doing an episode dedicated to silly seasons and anything else that's going on during the holidays. Can't wait to see all the vacation shenanigans they get up to. And if there's anything in particular you'd like to see, hear, discuss, get explained, hear me understand, send me an email. As always, subscribe, review, share, and follow on social to keep up during the summer break. See y'all soon. Box.